Yo, what's going on, guys? It's me, Tim, back with a video for you. And I want to talk about something that hits a bit different after years of use. You know that I've been in this creative game for over 2 decades. I have photographed over 300 weddings. I've worked at DreamWorks as an assistant film editor. But after all of that and having a ton of gear, there's one piece of gear that has stuck with me more than any other piece of gear. Well, maybe besides the Canon 5D Classic, and that is the Leica M10. And I know you're thinking, yeah, I've heard you rave about it. I understand that it's built like a tank and how it's the closest thing to shooting film. But let me tell you, there's a lot more to the M10 that what most people are talking about. So lean in closely because we're about to get real about gear. Like I've said, I will never review a piece of camera gear that I won't go back to and talk about it again. Now, I've been using this camera for the past 3 years, longer again than I've held any other piece of digital gear. And here's something you won't hear in a lot of typical reviews about the M10. The M10 teaches you discipline. It's not just about taking photos, it's about becoming intentional with your photography. The thing is, this camera will check your ego. The M10 doesn't have all the bells and whistles to cover for you. There's no fancy autofocus, there's no rapid fire 30 frames per second. You got to slow down and just decide, am I capturing this moment or am I just shooting? The M10 will make you ask yourself, why am I here and what am I seeing and what am I photographing? It's the discipline you don't know you need until you hold this thing in your hands. And after 3 years of owning this camera, when there's tons of other cameras out there that I could possibly trade in and buy, it's still pushing me to be a better photographer. Now, in these 3 years, I realized that the M10 forces you just to see the world a little bit differently. It forces you to think about composition, light, and timing in ways you might gloss over with the faster, more automated setup like a Sony A9 II. When I was working as a film editor at DreamWorks, I learned that the magic is in the details. The small, intentional choices that turn something from good to great. The M10 is like that. It slows you down just enough to notice those little details that will elevate your work. Whether it's capturing a wedding or documenting something on the street or just photographing everyday life, the M10 pushes me to look deeper and frame my moments that feel alive and intentional. And that's why that's why the M10 is different. It's not just a tool, it's a teacher. It teaches you to be present in every moment, to be deliberate in your choices, and to never settle for anything less than what you envisioned. I've had it over 3 years. It's pushing me to grow in ways I never expected. So if you're looking for a camera that not only captures the shot, but also shapes the way you photograph, the way you shoot, the way you frame a photo, the Leica M10 is really probably where your journey will begin. If you've ever felt like the gear is in control of you, and what I mean by that is cameras today are so great. They take, 50 frames in a second before it slows you down. It does all of the things that you could ever dream of. But let me tell you, when a camera is in control of you, when it does all the things for you, it really makes you a bystander. This camera puts you back into the driver's seat. I know that manual focus might sound intimidating, but hear me out. It's like driving a stick shift. Like driving a stick shift in a car. Once you master it, you start to realize that you're creating the image, not the machine. And there's something freeing about that. Leica's not only give you, or not about giving you shortcuts, it's about giving you the tools to become the artist you are meant to be. And 3 years into this being my daily driver, I'm not tired of it. In fact, I'm more in love with it. And trust me, for a guy who's had more cameras than some of you have had sneakers, that's saying something. So if you're wondering, if you're thinking, if you're watching this, you're probably interested if the Leica M10 is worth the commitment. Let me make it simple. Ask yourself, do you want gear that gets the job done, or do you want something that shapes you? If you're about growth, if you want to be pushed to see the world differently, then this is the camera for you. Video done, over, we can wrap it up. But if you want to get better, and if you want to do all the things that a photographer is called to do with what the greats way before our time have done, then getting this camera and shooting with it will really help you. Don't just take my word for it. There are dozens of videos on YouTube about this camera still in 2024. It's been out for a minute. There's the Leica M10 out currently that is amazing. It's a huge megapixel sensor. It does all the things that you want to. But you know, the thing is this, with any of these newer cameras, Sony, Canon, Nikon, they're all great. There's not a bad camera on the market today. But hear me on this. With the Leica M10, you're not firing off 50 frames and hoping one works for you. You're crafting, handcrafting each image, which, let me tell you, is a whole new level of satisfaction. So if you're ready to step up your game and deepen your connection with the craft, then the Leica M10 will take you there. I'm still discovering new ways to use it. I'm still discovering new ways that it's making me a better photographer. And it just doesn't sit there in my bag. I pick it up, I shoot with it daily, weekly. It's something that the camera that I always go to when I want to photograph something. It has transformed the way that I've created. And I know that there are so many other cameras out there that are honestly better than the Leica M10, that will get the work done faster than the Leica M10. There's a lot of things out there and a lot of cameras. It's not a bad camera on the market right now. We are in like peak camera. It now all just comes across to like, what's your preference? What do you want to learn? How do you want to be pushed? Like, I can tell you about all the details and the megapixel count and the ISO and the dynamic range, and all of that is great. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. There's not a bad camera on the market, like I've said before, and the Leica M10 is one of those cameras that just consistently pushes me to create and look at the world differently. And that should be a big enough reason for you to want to own one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the images. I'm going to continue to review this same camera and let you know the things that I learned new about it, and ways that it's helped me create differently. And I hope you get a piece of gear that excites you as much as the Leica M10 does for me. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.